Imperial Forces. The name just tells you what that song is about, doesn't it? It just tells you right away that it is about a war that is ensuing. And the Imperial Forces are going to obviously prevail, right? But less combative than that is this fantastic multi-generational sewing machine that, as you saw in the opening, is branded Atlas. And those of you that are not incredibly knowledgeable about Greek mythology, like I wasn't, didn't have a clue, you might not know that Atlas was a mythological god, lower G, of course. And he rebelled against Zeus, and as a penalty, he was condemned to holding up the heavens and the sky, not for a year, not 10 years, not 100 years, not 1,000 years, not 10,000 years, forever. I mean, we're talking, he must have really, really ticked off Zeus big time to get that kind of a penalty. And also, Atlas was the only Titan that had 4 arms. I could certainly use 4 arms in the workshop sometimes, I really could. But he was the only one that had 4 arms, and that's the namesake of this great machine that goes all the way back to this beautiful lady right here. You can see in the shot, great-grandma, I should say great-great-grandma, Alice. And this was taken right around 1994, and only 7 years later, great-great-grandma Alice went home to heaven. The heaven, apparently, that Atlas is holding up. Yeah, I'm not sure I believe in that, but, you know, at any rate. And in this shot, you can see Mackenzie, the older child over here. That is Haley's big sister, and that's Haley as a newborn on the other side. And Haley is the one that reached out to me a number of months ago. And she said, I've got this really, really special machine that belonged to my great-great-grandma Alice. And I know it's got issues. And I want to see if you can bring it back to greatness again. I've watched some of your videos. I know about your reputation worldwide. I know that you are the wizard. And now you're the wizard temporarily of the Twin Cities, Minnesota, Minneapolis area. And I want to take advantage of that. And I said I would be honored. I'd be honored to be able to bring back such a fabulous machine to greatness that has been in this family for so long. And Haley also entrusted to me the original instruction manual, which also, as you can see in the shot, it's kind of pinkish, isn't it? This machine is not pink, at least not anymore. But it has that original instruction manual, and then right on the front, next to the branding mark, if you can see it, it says something I've never seen before with a Japanese-made machine, which is what this Atlas is. Lifetime guarantee. And in fact, as you go into the manual, let me see if I can open this up. You go into the manual, all the way in the back is the actual certificate right there, where you can see the Sewing Center wrote a number of comments on there that not only are we going to guarantee it for a lifetime, but we're going to service it if it has any issues as well. So this was a big deal. A Japanese machine post-World War II receiving for the first time, and in sharp contrast to any of the other manufacturers of the day, to receive a lifetime unlimited warranty. I mean, you name it, they'll cover it, or at least they did while they were still in business back in the day. So really quite an accolade to this manufacturer that made this machine back in the day. And they also have on here an additional 1-year free accidental breakage replacement as well. So if you somehow mess up and you damage the machine and you break it, for the first year, you bring it back, they'll give you a brand new one. I mean, talk about standing behind a product. And back at that time, Singer and some of the other major manufacturers, they were boasting about like a 25-year warranty. There were a couple of manufacturers like Pfaff and others that were throwing out there a limited lifetime warranty, but I don't think it was as detailed and as robust and as generous as this one for the Atlas machine that belonged to great-great-grandma Alice. And it looks like this machine would have been bought back in October, October of 1956. Looks like October 16th, 1956. I don't know, these lights are goofy. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that or not. Right over here, it's got the actual purchase date, October 16th, 1956. So this machine is from the mid-ish 1950 time frame, as you might have expected. It's also got some really cool cutting edge technology that's highlighted in this manual as well. In the Raceway, it's going to be hard for us to see it, but in the Raceway, apart from the oscillating hook assembly that you normally expect to see, it's got an additional component in there that is designed to do two things. I'm going to see if I can show it to you because it's kind of cool. And they showed in the manual right here in the Raceway area, right over on that side over there. You probably can't see it very well. But it's an extra little element built into the Raceway that is designed to keep the Raceway clean and also get it as close to a jam-free Raceway as possible. So it wasn't just the Swedish beauties, the Husqvarnas that I always talk about, having the famous jam-free Raceway that was developed in Sweden, but even in the Japanese machines from the 1950s, they were already developing and refining technology that other companies around the world would be employing and copying sometimes as well. So I've said it before in other live streams, the Japanese don't just take something and replicate it, they really improve on it. They really take it to the next level. So any of you that in the past have been, as you've told me, almost confessed to me that you were poo-poo about Japanese machines until you started watching this channel and you learn more and more about these fabulous machines, and now you want to own one, or now you own one and now you want to get a second one or a third one or a fourth one. See that? I'm converting people to believing in the power of the Japanese engineering and technology. They do wonderful jobs of building these machines out and stepping them up, even if they start with original plans, like some of the Singer machines, the Class 15s that were infamous and part of that rebuilding for Japan after the end of the Second World War II time period. Then they started building sewing machines and trying to build up their industrial base to rebuild the country after we bombed it pretty badly with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? So following that time, long after that, decades after that almost, comes on the scene another level of Japanese sewing machine, this Atlas that, well, let me get you closer to it so you can really appreciate just how super duper cool it is. I should also show you as well that they also not only gave you an instruction manual, but they also gave you this quick reference as well that gives you guidance as far as the bobbin case, the threading of the bobbin case, the preparing for sewing, removing lint, tensions, blah, 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 blah. All kinds of cool little references in this book that Haley also entrusted to me that great-grandma Alice would have probably, when she was initially getting to know the machine, would have been referring to this supplemental instruction manual as well as an aid to get to know this great Atlas machine. But let me get you closer to this great Atlas machine, put on a little bit more Japanese music so you can appreciate what a cool cutting edge machine this is. that this family has had in their circle for quite some time, a long time. So right here, there's a really cool badge mark again, Atlas. And the Japanese love to use the word deluxe. You can see it right about there. There's Atlas over there holding the heavens up, which I personally believe God is in charge of that. But you know what? Greek mythology has its own twist on things, doesn't it? And there's a really cool supplemental badge mark for this great machine that they've trademarked as well. Over here we've got the branding plate that tells us that this machine, made by master craftsmen in Japan. So it's kind of neat, the whole deal about quality. Let me bump this volume down just a little bit. This whole idea about quality was a big deal because the Japanese had met with a lot of resistance as they were trying to come into the United States and introduce these machines, some of which were taken from patents and designs that the United States gave to the country as part of the pacification rebuilding of the country after World War II. But some of these were just something that the Japanese came up with, like this Atlas Deluxe, that really showcase the beauty and the design and the engineering mastery of the Japanese people. They really did quite an exemplary job with this machine. And it's one of the first badge marks that I remember seeing that highlights the fact that master craftsmen in Japan made this Atlas machine, this Deluxe Atlas. Now let me walk you around this Atlas a little bit, and you know, a lot of this is going to be familiar to you. You've seen this on other Japanese machines, or at least close to it. So right over here we've got our control center for stitch length, and also I'm not really a proponent of using it per se, but this is a control here that would be similar to the Singer version that would let you set boundaries. So you can adjust this one way or the other and kind of set a low boundary, a high boundary, etc. But otherwise, for sewing that longest stitch, around 6 to 7 stitches per inch, you're going to bring it all the way down to the bottom like it is right now, and then you're gradually going to bring it up if you want to shorten that stitch to a point where right about here, you're going to be sewing at about 30 stitches per inch. And if you go all the way up, you're going to be in reverse. So easy layout, kind of a cool little dial there with some numbers on it if you want to check that out a little bit closer. See if I can get closer to it to show it to you. So you can see right now we're set on 5, which should give us our longest stitch. And this is not a zigzag machine. This is going to be an Atlas Deluxe straight stitch only sewing machine. And so if you were wondering if I was going to zigzag it with it today, that's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So over here we've got right in the center of the bed, I'll show you one other branding mark. It's kind of cool. Looks like Atlas there, holding up the heavens, kind of looks like holding up the earth. And there again, they're bragging about and highlighting the fact that they can provide sales and service throughout the United States. Because again, that was their target market, wasn't it? They didn't make these in Japan with the intent of selling them exclusively within that market over there. They wanted to get them into the US and hopefully present them in a way that would create a little bit less of a ripple and a little bit less of an obstacle to marketing them and having Americans embrace them than they experienced with some of the earlier models closer to the following of World War II. People were still very much had a bitterness in their mouth about what happened with the Japanese War, World War II, and they didn't want to even consider the idea of embracing any products that came from that country. Gradually that subsided, and Americans and others started to recognize the quality of engineering and also just the sheer beauty of the machines that were coming out of Japan, and they started to really fall in love with them. So over here we've got, let me drop down over here, we've got feed dog drop, and easy enough to turn this. Right now they're fully engaged when you turn it all the way clockwise, and then if you turn it counterclockwise, you can drop those feed dogs down. This one does not come, it's got a metal sliver in my hand resting it on the table. Haha. This does not come with a darning type feature per se. Wait a second. Yes, it does. I was thinking of the other Japanese machine we just featured. It does have a stage darning process where on one it's going to be fully engaged, and then you can step it down to 2 or 3. 3 is going to be really a low darning point, and then 4 is going to be fully dropped down. So 4, 3, 2, or 1 with those feed dogs fully engaged. So, and that's it with Japanese machines, is if you get into a mode of remembering the basic lay of the land of one, all of a sudden you'll get a surprise like this one that has a 4-stage feed dog drop that allows you to have several lower darning portions, the equivalent of the slant-o-matic machines offered by Singer that let you raise that throat plate up to reduce the pull of the feed dogs against more delicate materials like silk and satin and that. So this one's going to give you a wide range where you can go with those lighter materials and not be ripping those feed dogs into that material. And then finally you can do free motion quilting or freehand embroidery by dropping it over to 4, and then those feed dogs will be down completely. Yeah. What else can I show you? This over here is for winding a bobbin. I don't know if I have enough reach with this camera. Let me see if I can stretch it just a little bit further. So if we're winding a bobbin, we're obviously going to disengage the clutch by holding the balance wheel and rotating this stop action clutch towards us. Once you do that, you go ahead and get your bobbin on here, and you can see there's no bobbin spool pin right here. There's a hole for one where you could have possibly had a spool pin at one time. But the way I would recommend setting this up for winding a bobbin is coming off the top, going through this thread guide right here, and then coming straight across the machine down to this tensioner. And again, when you're setting up for bobbin winding, the best idea with a tensioner like this is not to come underneath and up, but it's to come over the top clockwise and then come up. What that's going to do is it's going to lock that thread into that tensioner a little bit more securely, so if you're winding a bobbin much faster, it's not going to skip out of here as it sometimes has a tendency to do. So again, when you're coming to thread this for winding a bobbin, disengage the clutch and stop action over here. You're going to come across here to here, across here, and kind of come around like that, and then come straight up to here where the bobbin would be mounted. And you give it a wind a couple of times with a thread. Some people wind it away from them, some people wind it towards them. I usually have more success winding it towards me, about 5, 6, 7 turns around the bobbin. And then once that bobbin is seated on there properly, you just push this, and it engages right to the balance wheel rim, so you can wind it up. And you can see the old bobbin winding tire that was on great-great-grandma Alice's machine definitely had a good life. Ha! It needed to be replaced. So that was one of the things that I did. Also, this machine that great-great-grandma Alice and also Haley was using a little bit had this stretch style belt. Most of you know I'm not a big proponent of stretch belts because they tend to put a little bit too much tension and drag on the motor, and they literally cause the motor to overheat because you can't really adjust them very easily. And also this one you can see was past its expiration, starting to get a lot of that cracking and fatigue points, and eventually that cracking is going to work its way all the way through, and then the belt would break. So I went ahead and replaced this stretch belt with a V-style belt. You may be able to see it there, and adjusted it perfectly from alignment standpoint, loosening this pulley when I serviced the motor and rewired the motor as well, and then got it just lined up beautifully with that balance wheel. So now this machine has a huge amount of power and attitude, a huge amount. And you can see some of the wiring I did right over here. I re-insulated the wire that serves the light assembly with this stretch type material, or I should say a shrink type material. And then this is brand new wiring right here that is servicing the motor now. The motor, as far as the wiring, was really beyond worn out. It was really dangerous. This is an example of it right here. Let me see if I can go down a little bit further with our volume. This is what the wiring looked like on the motor when I got it from Haley. Bare wire all over the place, and even if the motor had started up, it would have been a fire hazard, right? Plus you would have been losing all the power from the motor as well, because remember, electricity is like water basically. When you've got exposed wire like this, not only is it a hazard and is it dangerous, but it also allows that energy to escape, so you're not getting the full benefit of what that motor would otherwise be supercharged with, right? So you want to always make sure to check your wiring, and if the wiring is starting to show signs of getting a little bit more stiff, maybe it's not broken up like this yet, you can always re-insulate that wire to give it more stability and strength and to keep it safe. It's kind of what I did with this wiring over here for the light, is I added an extra layer of shrink insulation to it all the way up into the pedestal to make sure that as Haley is moving this around potentially, she doesn't stress this wire and eventually cause it to break and become brittle and dangerous like this one off of the motor was. There was also a short in the switch as well that I had to remove by basically melting the soldering, and then I replaced it with a brand new switch you can see right there. And there was also a broken wire in the faceplate as well, and I was able to repair that also up in this region right there. Yeah, I kind of like this light assembly. It's kind of neat. You can flip this open here and you can get to that light to change it much more easily. Yeah, and this is our upper tension right here. I might as well show you the threading, while we're over in this way. So you come off the top and you can see I'm using my go-to dual duty XP Coates & Clark thread that I bought in a bazillion spools when they were doing a special sale. I think it was President's Day, this past President's Day. I just loaded up on thread. I walked up to the register and the lady was looking at me like, holy cow, did you leave anything for anyone else? I said, I did. I think there's 3 spools back there, so they better hurry. Yeah. So here's our dual duty XP thread that I have on Haley's great-great-grandmother's machine. Kind of come across here through this thread guide, and then we drop down to the upper tension unit. I have pictures that I haven't shown yet on Facebook, but I totally tore apart this upper tension unit and cleaned it thoroughly. It was just filthy inside. It was gummed up, a number of things going on with it. And again, if you go to a sew and vac or most sewing repair centers, they're never going to take time to do that. So again, it's a huge benefit of sending a machine to the workshop here, because you're going to get that level of service and that level of detailed, deep cleaning on the machine as well. And is an upper tension being dirty and gummed up going to affect the sewing and the stitch quality? Yeah, big time. Big time! So yeah, it's a shame that the other places don't invest that level of care and attention in the machines, but they simply don't, and they can't, because they're working with all that overhead, right? All that overhead, and with me working out of the residence, I'm able to save the customer money and give them much higher level of service, right? Much higher level of service. So All right, so we go through this thread guide right there. You can see that. We drop down over here to the tension. And always make sure when you're threading a machine, make sure your presser foot lever in the back is not down like it is right now. Make sure it's in the up position so that the tension is released from the discs and you're able to draw that thread into those discs nice and deep and make sure that you're getting proper tension regulation, right? And obviously when you bring that thread down, it's going to go behind this thread guide right here. And I'll show you one other thing on this. I've shown you that fine adjuster before that allows you to either increase or decrease the range of motion for this take-up spring. See that take-up spring that goes up and down in the sewing process? Well, depending on how far this is set, I'll kind of get down over here, will decide what the range of motion is, how far it's going to move. You see right now we're set all the way to the right. We could move it further to the left, which would allow us to change the range of motion for that take-up spring. We would basically be able to lower it down further. Lowering it down further will give you a little bit better pull-up as far as the bottom stitching on the bottom of the material to give you a greater clarity of lock stitch. But it also, when you get a larger range of motion on a spring like this, by adjusting that screw right there and pivoting this, it will also put more stress on the thread because that's ratcheting up and down in the sewing process and it's pulling harder against that thread. So just realize if you want to have a nicer defined lock stitch, especially if you're going through multiple layers or real dense material, you can adjust it, but you also want to have the appropriate type of thread on there that's not going to keep breaking on you and drive you crazy. Okay? All right, so we come around the bottom of these discs again, like I showed you, and then we have to come over by this take-up spring. We basically come between the take-up spring and we draw that take-up spring up until that thread naturally drops into that little saddle portion right there. Can you see that? And then from there, after we go through there, we'll bring that thread behind this thread guide again. So both threads are behind the thread guide. We come up to the take-up arm. We thread it from right to left. Drop back down. There's a thread guide right there. There's another thread guide kind of tucked in there. And then we're finally going to get down to the thread guide that's almost invisible. Where is it? There it is. Just to the left, just above the needle area. So don't miss that one either. And then finally you're going to drop down to the eye of the needle and you're going to be threading it from left to right. And as far as the flat side on this Atlas made in Japan, you want to make sure the flat side is facing the pillar or the balance wheel. So the flat side is on that side, which tells you right away on this oscillating hook system, that hook is going to be passing on the right side of the needle and grabbing that thread. That's why there's a scarf on your needles, if you didn't know that. As you look at the needle anatomy from the top to the bottom, when you get near the bottom, just above the eye of the needle, and I'm getting too close to it, the camera doesn't like it. When you get just above the eye of the needle, there's a little cut-in on the needle itself. It looks like a little notch, and that's called the scarf area. And that's where the hook system, whether it's an oscillating hook system like this machine, or whether it's a rotary hook system like a lot of the other machines you've seen on this channel, that allows that hook to pass very, very close to the needle and grab that thread in the scarf opening that's notched into the needle anatomy. You can kind of see it there. I won't go any closer or it's going to go out of focus. So just keep that in mind. It's a great way to know which way, if you're looking at that hook system with the machine without a bobbin in there, and you can kind of see that hook swinging around, or in this case, oscillating like a pendulum around, you can determine the timing and also determine the placement of that flat side so that it's going to be in proximity to that hook system in the sewing process. Hopefully that makes sense a little bit. Also, this plate you can see right here, I did a temporary repair on it, soldering, excuse me, soldering this piece back on, and I got this one just in the mail as a parts replacement for Haley's machine, because what I did with Haley's so I could, excuse me, so I could set the machine up for sewing and get it adjusted and ready to go for this premiere, is I took soldering and a solder iron, and I basically took this piece, if you imagine it being broken just to the left of that screw, I was then able to solder it back into place, and it's fairly sturdy. It's sturdy enough to stay on the machine, but I wanted to get a replacement plate for Haley so that she doesn't have to be concerned about that solder potentially breaking and the plate coming loose again like it was before. So I'll make sure that this new plate is installed on the machine, and then I'll give Haley the old plate as a backup. Okay? Yeah. What else? So that's the threading. Oh, let's talk a little bit about the great presser foot adjustment on this machine and other Japanese machines. Really quite nice. So you've got the presser foot adjustment right here, and you might say, well, how do you adjust it? Well, you adjust it by pushing this to release it. Now it's got no presser foot pressure, and then you slowly push it down depending on the type of material you're sewing with. So this might be silk and satin right there. This might be cotton. This might be denim. This might be leather. This might be multiple layers. And if you push it down a little bit further than you wanted, then you just push the quick release again, and you start all over again. And you can see, unlike the other Japanese machine that I showed recently, I believe this one has little markings on there, kind of looking at it through the camera, which will allow you to remember when you're shifting between different materials. Oh, where did I set it for the denim? Oh, that's right, I set it right there. Where did I was doing that leather sewing. Where? Oh yeah, that's right, I set it right there. So it's helpful to have those markings. Sometimes they even colorize them so they stand out in red, and then you can more readily recall. Otherwise, you got to spitball a little bit, don't you? You got to go, well, I think I was in that range for satin and silk, but it might have been just a little bit further down, and then give it a go. You know, what's the worst thing that can happen? You'll get a little bit of puckering on the material, a little bit of that grouping action on the material where the pressure for, say, silk and satin is too heavy. And then you just start over again. Just go, okay, I'm not going to go down as far this time. I'm going to go right about there. And then you can see there's also a lubrication point right there. Put a couple drops of oil in there. Oh, probably about once a month would be sufficient. Keeps this moving nice and freely so that it doesn't stick. Yeah. Haha, it's fun. And I'm going to set it right about there because we're going to be, let's see, set it right about there. We're going to be sewing some cotton to begin with. And then there's another lubrication point right there. Another lube point right there for the needle bar assembly. So a couple drops in there. And you might say to yourself, holy mackerel, that's a tiny little opening. I've got, you know, like a oiling can like this. And it's kind of too big on the end to go in that tiny little hole over here. What's the best way to lubricate that? Well, I would recommend getting a hold of some syringes like this. You can get them at local stores that deal with farming, because these are used for inoculations and immunizations and all that sort of thing they do with farm animals. You can order them online. I'm sure you can get them on Amazon. And then you put your crystal white sewing machine oil in there and take off the little end. And then you've got a needle point that fits in there very nicely. And don't saturate it, just give it a little tiny push to add just a little bit of extra oil. to that needle bar. Needle bar needs to be maintained incredibly well to make sure there's proper lubrication, right? Because that's going to be moving up and down during the entire sewing process. All right, what else? What else did I not cover? I think that's about it. Oh, let me talk about the bobbin in here, the bobbin case. See if we can get a little bit closer to it. You see, we've got a bobbin case set up on this, excuse me, Atlas Japanese machine, with the finger, as I refer to it, that little finger at the top, pointing to the right, which would be the 1 o'clock position. So if you have a Japanese machine, some of them are going to have this little finger, that little finger right there. Let me put these together. Haha. Almost got it. Some of them are going to have that little finger. Where am I? There I am. They're going to have that little finger right there that I'm pointing at, pointing to the 1 o'clock position like Haley's great-great-grandmother's machine. Or some of them are going to have that finger pointing at the 11 o'clock position to the left. So if you're ordering a bobbin case replacement for whatever reason, make sure you get the correct one so that you're not facing a challenge in trying to put it in and you're going, wait a second, the finger isn't going in, it's not lining up, probably because you ordered the wrong one. So again, on this machine, it's going to be one of those bobbin cases that has the finger pointing at the 1 o'clock. Other Japanese machines will take the bobbin case that has the finger pointing at the 11 o'clock, about 2 stages to the left. Okay? So just keep that in mind. All right, what else? I think that's probably enough. Oh, we'll talk a little bit about the motor as well. Kind of come over the top here and zoom in on the motor a little bit. You can see it's branded Atlas as well. And you can see on here, whoops, if it stays focused you can see, otherwise you can't. You can see here it's not giving us an amperage, is it? Oh yeah, it is. Oh, there, I see it now. Ah, way over to the left. So it's giving us the 1/15 of a horsepower, and then over to the left it's giving us the equivalent of about 1.2 amps. So if you didn't know that about some of these Japanese machines, they come with very, very large motors. And the beauty of the belt that I put on Haley's machine now with this V-style belt is it's going to grab that output pulley and it's going to grab the rim of that balance wheel much better than that stretch belt will, which means she'll get the full benefit of this rewired motor that I just did. She'll get that 1.2 amps and maybe even a little bit more, depending on how she's throttling that controller. All right, looking around, seeing if there's anything else. Yeah, just notice the oiling points across here. Got an oiling point right here for the main shaft, another oiling point for the pitman arm, oiling point right over here for more of the main shaft, oiling point, oiling, 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 oiling. Yeah, and again, just remember 1 to 2 drops is sufficient. Don't flood the machine with oil. Don't flood it. Doesn't need it. Doesn't need that much oil. All right, a little bit more Japanese music, and let's actually give this machine a go. I'm going to get that old wiring out of the way. Oh, and I should do one other thing too, real quick. Hold on a second. I'm going to come back into the shot and talk about what I'm wearing today. Talk about what I'm wearing. Also, I better put this needle away before I get poked. Okay, so if you look at my shirt, I don't know if you're able to see it in the shot or not. I'm going to rotate the camera a little bit. This is a shirt and a gift that came to me by way of Joelle and Sandra from Bakersfield, California. And this particular shirt is highlighting a really cool venue that apparently was developed to honor Buck Owens. And if some of you don't know who Buck Owens is, Buck Owens was a honky-tonk country boy that created some really cool music. He also was buddies with an artist that my father was absolutely nuts over, and I listened to it when I was a boy on 8-track tapes. Yeah, there actually were 8-track tapes at one point, and listening to it eventually on anything else that Dad had his music on, albums. Merle Haggard and Buck Owens were good friends, and they created a lot of great country western music. And Bakersfield, California is known as kind of the other Nashville because there are so many great artists that came out of it. And Sandra and Joelle, as a thank you for the work I did on their FOF 1222, for the work I did on their FOF 1222E, they sent me this beautiful shirt for the Crystal Palace, and then also a beautiful bag and a number of other cool things. So thank you again to the ladies. It was really a privilege and an honor to work on that great FOF machine. And now I'm wearing this shirt proudly. And if I read correctly online, the Crystal Palace is not open anymore. It closed. I had it on my phone. I don't know if I still have it open, but it closed. There was some sort of an event that happened that resulted in it being closed. Let me see if I can find it. I probably closed it, maybe. No, here it is. My phone is really slow today. Really slow! So the Crystal Palace originated in the mid-1980s, and Buck Owens spent most of his early career performing in smoke-filled bars and honky-tonks. Anyone wants to Google honky-tonk and type in the live chat, what is a honky-tonk? That would be super cool if you're willing to do that. But he eventually wanted to go from a smoke-filled bar into having a classier place. And so they eventually built this Crystal Palace place. And that's where Buck Owens performed country western music, and also a place where he could be himself, whatever that meant to Buck Owens. And certainly other artists performed at that beautiful place as well. But eventually, let's see here. Yeah, the Crystal Palace was built in 1996, it looks like. And at any rate, I can't find it now. Isn't that funny? Eventually it closed. And the ladies out in Bakersfield, California, or anyone else from California maybe can confirm that information is correct, that the Crystal Palace that was such a landmark in Bakersfield, California, is no more. I think they converted it into something else, some other type of business or location. And you might think, with the Crystal Palace, how did it get its name? From what I understand, a lot of the structure was built with an open glass type design. So the majority of the space inside of this Crystal Palace that Buck Owens helped to develop didn't need any artificial light. It was opened up so much that the natural light would just flood in, and just a beautiful, beautiful design. Yeah, and maybe it reopened. I don't know. Someone can clarify that for me. But thank you again to Joelle and to Sandra, the ones that I had the privilege, really for the whole family, I had the privilege of restoring this FOF 1222E and get it back to them. And, they wanted to say thanks. So I get a really cool shirt. Susie gets a really cool bag. And yeah, send more gifts. I like it. All right. All right, let me clean up this this old wiring and this shorted out switch, and then we'll put this machine to work finally. I'll kind of zoom in and you can focus on the machine while I'm cleaning up and enjoy some of this Japanese music that I have playing in the background. Okay, I think the first sew-off we're going to do, I do have a piece of metal still in my hand. Ouch. Can I get it out? It is still there. I got to grab my tweezers. That is a pesky little guy. Yeah, if you ever get a metal sliver, they are downright painful, aren't they? Now stuck to my other finger. And the reason I get some of these metal slivers is when I'm cleaning a machine up, sometimes we'll use a Dremel tool to polish up some of the areas that have varnishing on them to free those parts up so that they can move more freely. And those little wires that are part of those brushes will shoot off and they'll stick in, you know, the workspace or whatever, and then as I brush by with my hand, I'll get one of those wires that sticks into my skin. So that literally just happened right now. So, all right, let me zoom in on the presser foot and let's sew off on some of this 100% cotton, very common material that people will use. And I've got a little bit of stiffener in there just to give it a little bit more stability. Probably don't need it, but we'll give it a little bit more stability. And check out this initial stitching with this Japanese-made Atlas machine that, again, would have been purchased by Haley's family. I believe it was right around 1956, right? If I remember correctly, I think it was 1956. I just want to double check. Yep, October 16th of 1956. Yeah. And I'm curious, does anyone know back in 1956, what would a machine like this have sold for? If someone wants to type it into the live chat, and then I'll show you it's actually in the owner's manual, the price that would have been spent on a machine like this. It was really a wheel of a deal. Really a wheel of a deal. All right, let's get going on this one. And again, remember with oscillating hook systems, even one like this that has that cutting edge technology with that extra component built into the raceway that keeps the raceway cleaner and also makes it a little bit less likely to jam, you still need to hold on to those threads a little bit when you launch, because the oscillating hook system, not having that larger range of movement like a rotary hook system, it's going to be pulling that thread a little bit more aggressively. So just hold on to the thread initially when you launch, and then you should be good to go. Okay? All right, let me just back it up a little bit, give us a little cleaner start. All right, here we go. I'm going to stop our music for a second so we can listen to this great machine run. Really, it's quite a sweet running machine. Yeah, beautiful stitching. We'll do one other stitch line, kind of give it a little bit of a shorter stitch, and then we'll look at both of them together. And I always like to start with cotton. I don't always start with cotton, but I like to start with cotton just because it's such a common material that people are going to be sewing with in one form or another. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and adjust my stitch length. Come over here and we can take a closer look as I'm doing that. So I'm all the way down at the bottom, which is going to give me about probably around 6 to 7 stitches per inch. I'm just going to come up a little bit, just gradual increase, right about to there. We'll stitch a line, we'll go up again, stitch a line, and then you can see comparatively the difference in those stitch sizes, the stitch length, but at the same time I think we'll be able to maintain some really good clarity on those stitches at the same time. Alright, let me get over there. A little bit closer, a little bit down. There we go. And you're getting an initial glimpse already of the top stitching on those 2 layers of 100% cotton with that stiffener. And the stitching is just absolutely spot on. Just absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to stitch another line now. And again, realize this thing is powered by, what did I say, a 1.2 amp motor. It's like 1/16 of a horsepower or something like that. So it's got a big meaty motor. It's a big heavy Japanese machine, but it still runs just whisper quiet after workshop magic and rewiring the machine and such. It's just a beautiful running machine. All right, let's do this next stitch line and then we'll do one more after it. All right, give a listen. Give a listen to this great machine that was purchased back in 1956, has been in Haley's family for the entire time, and it's just a treasure of a machine to this family. And now that it's gone through the workshop magic, it's like it's brand new. It's actually better than brand new. All right, so give a listen. Here we go. Unbelievably quiet. Wow. All right. And again, realizing that we're threading our needle from left to right, give it a pull when you're pulling it out to the right so that you're not stressing that needle and potentially bending the needle. And we'll do one more stitch roll, make it a little bit shorter. I think we're probably around 12 stitches per inch, something like that. Go even a little bit smaller, and then we'll look at these 3 stitch rows together. So off camera now I'm just adjusting my stitch length a little bit shorter, a little bit higher up. Alright, let's do this last column and then we'll check out these stitches on this 100% cotton. Alright, give a listen to this machine, just unbelievable. Here we go. Amazing, amazing. Such a big, strong machine, and yet it runs quieter than a featherweight, quite honestly. It truly does. And everyone's always bragging about rotary hook systems being quieter than oscillating hook systems. I just don't think it's the case. I think it depends on how that machine has been serviced and prepared will really determine the outcome of how that machine performs. I'm going to lean it up against here and shut off our light just for a moment, and we'll take a look at these stitches now. Let me bring the camera down. Our initial stitch offs on these 2 layers of 100% cotton. Almost got it. Folks, that is absolutely, are you kidding me, drop dead gorgeous stitching. I'm actually going to hold it up so I can get even a better angle on it, I think. Bring it up to about here. We'll take a look at that stitching going across. Unbelievable. Let's look at it like this also, vertically. See if I can get my camera to cooperate. Hold on a second. Got an itch on my nose. So you can see those columns of stitches. I am seeing in the the last stitch column, and actually the middle one as well, that we might have to back off that upper tension a little bit. I'm seeing a little bit of a looseness in the stitching, and that's a product of the bobbin case not pulling down hard enough, which means our upper tension is pulling up too hard. I'll turn it like this again so you can see it like this and get a good perspective of the stitching. Really lovely stitching, but we can always make things better, right? We can always make things better. So what I would do on these stitches, the larger of the two stitch columns looks fine to me. The one that we did about 6 to 7 stitches per inch. But the second column that we did and the last column we did where we made it even shorter, I would back off that upper tension, this right here. I would back this off a little bit and give that bobbin case a little bit more power to pull down to define that stitching even more. But all in all, some beautiful, beautiful stitching on these 2 layers of 100% cotton with this stiffener. See if I can do it like this. There we go. Yeah, very, very nice stitching. We'll turn it over now, look at that lock stitch. Start on that upper column. Very, very nice. But you can see how the largest of the stitching on there, the longest of the stitching I should say, is actually showing signs of a little bit of stress. In other words, that upper tension was pulling so hard that it actually created a little gap point between those stitches. Let me get my hand positioned right so I can hold it more steady. If you see the spacing between the longest of the stitches, there's a little bit more of a gap point there. Same thing on the middle row. That's a telltale sign that the upper tension is pulling a little bit too hard, and that's why we lose a little bit of definition on the top stitching. So again, we can adjust that upper tension down just a little bit. We're still going to get a beautiful lock stitch like we are right now, but it's not going to be over pulling and actually causing that stitch to get a little bit stubby. And that will also tighten up on the top stitching, the remaining of the stitching that we've got. So this again is our top stitching. Trying to get my hand positioned right here. There's our top stitching, our lock stitching. It's going to be easier to see it like that, I think. Yeah, all in all, I think we've got a good result, but I think we still do have an opportunity to adjust that stitching just a little bit to get even better clarity of stitch on there. Top stitching is just about where we want it, but a little bit shy, and the lock stitching is just a little bit overly pronounced. So we would just turn this back just a little bit. We're set right about on 5 right now. We would just back it off just slightly. And that would give us a little bit less of an overly pronounced stitch definition on the lock stitch and give us more definition on the top stitching. Yeah, still a lovely stitch. You can see it right there. When I eliminate the shadow that those LED lights above me create. Some lovely stitching there, turning it over. Some lovely stitching there as well. But our goal at Cow Country is always to have constant and never-ending improvement. So when we look at stitching like this and we say it really is quite nice, we can always make it better, can't we? All right, so I'm going to throw this in our little pile that's growing over here. You see I did some stitching off camera as well, as I was getting the machine adjusted and fine-tuned. We'll add that to our pile and we'll move on to our next sew-off. A little bit more Japanese music while we're doing that, I think. I think my internet went out. There we go. All right, let's zoom back in on Haley's great-great-grandma Alice's machine. All right. So what do I try next? I've got some of this marine vinyl, and I've got satin. We'll probably try some of that. I've got genuine cowhide. Why don't we give some cowhide a try? All right. Pause this real quick. There we go. I'm going to pause this, and off camera I showed you that presser foot control on top of the machine. It's going to be right where my hand is right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to push this down a little bit further because we're going to be trying some cowhide now. I need a little bit more presser foot pressure. Give us good even feed. And we'll come back down to the needle and check this next sew off out where we're going to be going through genuine cowhide. And if you've never sewn cowhide before, next to Italian leather, it's probably one of the most dense, difficult to pierce materials. That's why it's used so widely for jackets and all kinds of other applications. People love the way it stands up to wear and tear. I think I'll leave our light off for right now. Works better with the camera. Yeah, I like that better. All right, so let's see if we can go down this genuine cowhide. I'm going to do one layer, and then we'll see whether or not we're going to add a second layer. I'm also going to adjust my stitch length back to a longer stitch, and then I'm also going to just slightly back off this upper tension just a tiny little bit more. See if that'll give us a good tension balance going through this heavier material. All right, so give a listen. We're going to launch into this genuine cowhide. And a little bit of a heavier sew off, quite a bit heavier than the cotton. Listen to the machine and see how she sounds under a little bit more stress, okay? All right, here we go. I hardly even had my foot on the foot controller and the machine was already saying, okay, let's go, let's go, let's go. Getting all excited and saying, yeah, let's do some leather sewing. All right, let me give this a clip. We'll check out this leather. And I personally believe that Japanese machines, when they're running properly, like this Atlas machine now after it went through Workshop Magic and that. I think that they're a wonderful leather sewing machine. Wonderful leather sewing machine. Oh yeah, beautiful, beautiful stitch balance. Let's take a closer look at this and see what you think. I think we'll put it right down there to start. Just have to zoom in so I don't get that shadow in there at the same time. So 100% cowhide. We're not sewing with a leather needle. We're sewing with a Schmetz Universal 9014 needle. And yet Haley's great-great-grandmother's machine just blasted through this stuff. Just blasted through it. And I can see by a slight tipping of the stitch on the right side that we made that adjustment down. We might have to adjust it back the other way. We may have to adjust it back the other way. Let's see. We'll see how our lock stitch looks before we make any changes. But some really, really good stitching. I think I'll just set it down. It's probably easier for me. I'll tilt it a little bit with these clips. So there's our 4 to 5 ounces of genuine cowhide. Some beautiful, beautiful stitching. I would just make a slight tension adjustment to give a little bit more pull down to define that stitch even a little bit better than it is. This camera is not happy today. There we go. So I'm just going to back this off even just a little bit more. Bring it down to about 4.5, almost to 4. And what that'll do is it should tighten this top stitch up just a little bit more. We've got a good looking stitch, but it could be pulled a little bit tighter with that bobbin case to pull that tip down so it's back in line, because our holes are in perfect alignment, which means the needle bar, everything is adjusted properly, but our thread is just a little bit on the loose side. Yeah, let's look at that lock stitch. You can see here again the gap point, the gap point between the stitches is telling us that the upper tension is pulling a little bit too hard. See the gap point between where the needle strikes are between the stitch line? And you can see on the back we don't have any tilting of the stitch. And that's because it was pulling up, our upper tension was pulling up hard enough that it got that stitch thread nice and straight. It was pulling a little bit too hard though. And the result then is that we got a little bit of a tilt on that stitch for the top stitching. See how straight it is? But a little bit too much of a space in between where the stitches are that's telling me the upper tension is pulling up just a little bit too hard. And the result is when it's pulling up too hard, then that bobbin case can't pull down hard enough, because remember the bobbin case that's in here is pulling down while the upper tension is pulling up. They're in a tug of war like this. They're in a tug of war. This is pulling up, this is pulling down. And if this is pulling up just a little bit too hard, the upper tension is pulling up a little bit too hard, it takes away the pull down factor of the bobbin case, and then you get a slight little tip of the stitch on the right side there. See that? And that can be solved very easily by the adjustment we did to the upper tension so that that bobbin case can pull down a little bit harder and straighten that thread out so we have a nice straight stitch, just like we do on the lock stitching back here. See that? So it's a balance process, isn't it? It's a tug of war where this upper tension is wanting to make sure that we get a great lock stitch on the back. So this is pulling up when you're sewing to make sure that this on the bottom is going to be nice and beautiful. While the bobbin case is saying, wait a second, I'm equally as important. I'm pulling down to make sure that I've got a beautiful top stitch. So this is pulling down to give us this. This is pulling up to give us this. Okay? Hope that makes sense. It's really important you understand that, because I've gotten those phone calls from the seamstress or the sewist or even the tailor that's struggling with tension adjustment and doesn't understand the concept of how this works in relation to how this works. And they're adjusting it the wrong way and making it worse. So just understand that simple concept, that the top stitch is being defined by what's happening with the bobbin case, and the lock stitch, this right here, the lock stitch is being defined by what's happening with the upper tension. Okay? Tug of war, back and forth. All right, but that's some beautiful stitching on this 100% cowhide. Really is quite lovely. Even the top stitching that I'm a little bit critical of, because of that real subtle tilt on the stitch, is still a lovely, lovely stitch. It just needs a subtle adjustment, which we've already made. Yeah. So we'll stitch down this one more time, laying down a slightly smaller stitch, and seeing if we can then retire this genuine cowhide and move on to some of these other materials I've got prepared. And in the meantime, a little bit more Japanese music is in order, I think. Alright, so off camera I'm just adjusting that stitch length controller, or pushing it up a little bit. And let's go down this leather one more time. Alright, here we go. Notice no hand start whatsoever. We just launched into it, and Haley's great-great-grandmother's machine is truly exemplifying its name of Atlas. It is super strong, super determined. And I did not turn my phone off. Go ahead and silence that. It's a Minnesota call, not that you need to know that, but it's a Minnesota call, which is the evidence of the demand for my services in this area right now. A lot of folks are going to be bummed out when I move down to Kentucky. A lot of people are going to be bummed out. All right, we'll give this a clip and we'll take a look at this latest stitch off that we just did. Do a quick check on my bobbin case too. Feels like we might be getting a little bit of a drag on that. Let me check that out real quick. You can see my bobbin case right here. I just pulled it out. It's a class 15 style bobbin case. Just making sure our thread isn't doing anything weird like sometimes happens with the class 15. And when you put these together and you've got the bobbin in your right hand, the bobbin case in your left, you want to make sure that thread is coming underneath the bottom. And then you'll draw it through that track and then down into this opening here, just making sure that it's pulling nicely without any difficulty. Sometimes they'll slip on a position. You've seen that happen on these live streams before. go. You heard that little snap in. Rotate your balance wheel and you can pull that thread back up again. Close our plate. Okay, let's take a look at the stitching we just did on this genuine cowhide. We've already looked at the longer stitch. Now we're looking to look at that shorter stitch. Take into account we made that adjustment on the upper tension to give us greater clarity on that top stitch. And I think it definitely paid off. Let's take a look at that now. All right, see, we get nice and close to that. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful stitching. Still a little bit light on the tension, even with that adjustment we made. Our holes are lining up perfectly, so we know our needle bar is lined up correctly. But we're still getting just a modest little tip on that stitch, which is a tension factor. So our upper tension is still being a little bit too much of a bully. And we could always go to our bobbin case and make an adjustment, but I'm going to resist doing that for right now and just focus on the fact that we've got a very good stitch coming out, and we just need to make a subtle adjustment to that tension as we're working through these different materials to get the outcome that we want. But some beautiful, beautiful stitching. Let's look at that lock stitch again. Kind of go across and look at that. And of course we're going to get a better stitch as well if we use a proper needle. We're sewing through this much leather, about 4 ounces of leather. We're going to get a better stitch result if we use a leather needle. But for right now we're going to stick with our universal needle, which, if you don't know it, the universal needle does not have a sharp point. It's got a slightly rounded point. So the sheer grit and power of this Japanese Atlas machine is what's getting us through it, because the needle is not super sharp. It's punching through rather than cutting through like a leather needle would do. But folks, that is beautiful, beautiful lock stitching. I think we'll make one more subtle little adjustment here. Just back this off just a tiny little bit more. Bring us all the way down to 4. Again, when you set these tensions up, this plate right here that's numbered can be pushed in, and depending on how far you push it in and turn this at the same time before those teeth lock into each other will determine how much pre-tension you have. Let me explain that again. When I tear this apart and I do that thorough deep cleaning to make sure that the upper tension is working perfectly, depending on how far I turn this, when I have this plate here pushed in, will determine how much pre-tension. In other words, if I push this in and right away I turn this and lock it in, my pre-tension will be very low. If I push this plate in that's numbered and I turn this a couple of times, then my pre-tension will be much higher. I like a pre-tension that's a little bit higher so I don't have to adjust the upper tension up to 7 or 8. I can get great tension at 4 or 5. You might do it differently, but as long as you understand the concept, you'll be in great shape, right? So right now our pre-tension is a little bit higher, which means we don't have to go as high on this. We can even adjust it down below a little bit 4, and we're still going to get a great lock stitch, because when I set this up after I cleaned it and reassembled it, I pushed this little plate in that's numbered, and I gave this about 2 or 3 turns before I allowed those teeth to lock into place. There's teeth on this, there's teeth on this, and they mesh up together again so that when you turn this you can adjust it. I hope that makes sense. It's a real valuable tip, I think, for you to understand, so you can set up your tension unit how you want to set it up. Maybe you would prefer to be all the way up to 7 or 8, then you don't want to put on as much pre-tension as I do. Okay? But some lovely, lovely stitching. Let me turn it like this. Some lovely, lovely stitching on this leather with our top stitching, especially on that shorter stitch after we made the adjustment. But we can still make another adjustment if we need to. And then our lock stitching as well is quite spectacular. Get this out a little bit further. Our lock stitching is also looking really, really good. A little bit too good. It's being a bully, isn't it? It's kind of overpowering that bobbin case just a little bit. Our stitching here is overly pronounced, and our stitching on top is better on the second row that we did because of my adjustment, but we could still make it even better, couldn't we? Yeah. But, you know, when you're dealing with genuine cowhide, 4 or 5 ounces, and you're sewing with a universal needle, not a leather needle, we're getting some great results. And I'll leave the rest of this leather open so that Haley or maybe another family member can buzz down this just like they saw on this premiere. Okay, so I'll add this to our pile over here. Add this to our pile over here, and we're going to keep growing that pile, leading towards eventually our sew-off sandwich, as I call it, our sewing Olympics, where we continue going through a wide field of materials and getting some really cool results. All right. More Japanese music? Maybe? Oh, I've got it muted. You can see some of the other materials I have over here I didn't show you specifically. I've got some of this canvas material. I've got some of this blue stuff is marine vinyl, satin. I've got more cowhide over here. I've got some of this Italian leather also. Some of our parchment paper, and then I also have upholstery material also. Matter of fact, why don't we try going through a second layer of this leather and just see what result we get. Let me zoom in on this and I'll show you the thickness of what we're going to be looking to sew. Actually, rather than zooming in, let me bring the camera down. I'm going to wear this tripod out here. So this is the initial sewing we did right here. Some really lovely sewing through a single layer. Now we're going to add a second layer. Look at the thickness of that. I would be remiss if I didn't give this Japanese Atlas machine a chance to flex its muscles a little bit. I mean, if Atlas if Atlas can hold up the heavens, supposedly, we're hoping Atlas can make it through these 2 layers of genuine cowhide, probably about 8 to 10 ounces of leather. And again, our needle is not a leather needle. It's a universal needle. So I think it will be an impressive feat if we can do it successfully. And obviously on the back side, we'll have only 1 stitch row. On the front, we're going to have 3 stitch rows. Should we try it? I think we should try it. Let's give it a go and see how we do. If I break the needle, I've got more needles. I can always replace it. So I'll get this into position, heading towards getting into position. We'll try these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. I don't think we'll need a hand start, but I'll be prepared to do that if needed. If needed. Let's see if we can lock it in right there. All right, turn my screen around. And I'm going to bump up our presser foot pressure even a little bit higher, since now we're stepping it up to 2 layers of 100% cowhide. And I have to make a confession to all of you. Let me come out on this shot a little bit. We looked at this Atlas machine, right? And we know that it's like a 1/16 of a horsepower, I think is what it said, which is 1.2 amps. So I always talk about it, I preach about it literally, about the fact that a foot controller should always have a larger gateway. When the electricity flows into a sewing machine, it goes through the foot controller first, and then it works its way to the motor. Well, I'm cutting corners a little bit today because I didn't have another foot controller in my temporary workshop to accommodate a motor this large. Normally I would go with a Mercury style foot controller that would support 1.2 amps. Today, let me show you what I've got. Today I've got a traditional Bakelite foot controller that is only rated for 0.7 amps. So it's not the ideal setup, is it? This is intended for a 201-2 or a featherweight or a 1591, something like that, that's going to be pulling about 0.7 amps, not 1.2. But I think because I'm not operating this to the max, we're going to be fine in demonstrating Haley's machine today and seeing if we can get a great outcome, even though we're not using a foot controller that would be ideal. I had to make that confession. Had to make that confession, and also grab a little bit of Diet Coke at the same time. Yeah. All right, let's do this next sew-off. This will probably be our biggest challenge, considering our setup is not ideal. We're using, again, a muscular Atlas Japanese machine with a motor rated at 1.2 amps, and we're using a featherweight style Bakelite foot controller to power it. I had to be honest with you and show you that I was doing that, but again, I'm not operating it at the max level, so we're not demanding as much from that featherweight style foot controller as we would normally. We're good. All right, let's see if we can get through this leather, 2 layers of it, and yeah, keep on going, right? Keep on driving. All right, try this without a balance wheel boost. See if we can do it. All right, you can almost see both of my hands. Now you can see both of my hands. So I'm going to try to get through these 2 layers of genuine cowhide without turning the balance wheel. It's called a little boost, where you kind of give the machine a little bit of an assist, like I did on that other Japanese machine. But so far, this Atlas has not needed it. We'll see what happens when we hit these 2 layers of genuine cowhide. All right, here we go. Oh, there we go. A little bit of a stuck. We get a slight little boost, and we'll work our way through this. Can you tell how hard that machine is working? That machine is working hard, especially considering the motor is not getting the full gulp of energy that it needs. And it's important that I show you that and that I'm honest with you about that, so you can see where if we had a foot controller like those Mercury style ones that's rated at 1.2 amps, you wouldn't hear that motor going, oh, where's the rest of my energy? Where's the rest of my energy? It's struggling a little bit, not because it doesn't have the power, but it's struggling a little bit because it's dealing with a foot controller that doesn't have that full oompah-pah, right? Now we made another adjustment on that upper tension, remember? We backed it off just a little bit further. Let's see if that gave us a better result as far as that top stitch compared to the first row. I think you're going to be happy. But we might have taken a little bit away from our lock stitch. Just a little bit. Kind of a balance, isn't it? It's a balance, balance, balance. All right, so let's take a look at this close up now. Set it right like that. Yeah, it's coming in the line much better now. Let's go down and look at this stitching. So you can see we have less of a tip up on that row right here where we made that tension adjustment, but we might even have to adjust it a little bit further. But considering the amount of leather we're going through and the fact that we're not using a leather needle, we're getting some great results. We truly are. And that bobbin case might just need a little bit more of a boost. Just a little bit more of a boost. Let me just pause this for a second. If we were sewing with a leather needle, we probably wouldn't have to make so many tension adjustments. Let's look at it like this as well. And consider the fact that on this row on the far left, we actually are looking better in line, better in balance with tension, and we went through twice as much leather as the first sew off. Look at the thickness of that. And it's because we're zeroing in on that tension sweet spot. You can see right there, we all but nailed it on the first 2 to 3 stitches. We don't have any of the tipping of the stitch, and it's just zeroing in beautifully. So a little bit more adjustment on tension, and we would all but nail it. And of course, sewing with a leather needle would help us a little bit too. But all in all, some beautiful, beautiful stitching, especially that bottom row where we were going through the 2 layers of leather, and those stitches started to come into form just beautifully. It's all about tension, isn't it? It's finding that tension sweet spot, that tension balance to get the outcome that we want. If we turn it over, we look at that lock stitching, we're only going to see 1 row. And again, remember, we took away from that upper tension by backing it off more and more and more. And we still maintained a decent lock stitch, but we almost took too much away, which is telling me at this juncture that if we're going to sew at this level with 2 layers of genuine cowhide, we're going to be sewing at this level, we might have to make an additional adjustment with the bobbin case so that we can maintain our definition for lock stitching without continuing to take away from it. All in all, we maintained a good lock stitch through these 2 layers of genuine cowhide, but we're almost starting to get too far. We're almost crossing that line where we're trying to give back to that top stitch, and we're starting to steal a little bit of the definition from the lock stitch. Do you get me? Do you feel me, as the young people say? We can adjust a lot through this. We've adjusted it all the way down to below 4. But again, remember, I pre-calibrated this a little bit higher. So 4 is probably the equivalent of 6 or 7 on your sewing machine. Okay? So we pre-calibrated a little bit higher, and we got some really good results. That bottom row, again, is going to be our 2 layers of genuine cowhide, but we're almost starting to take a little bit too much away from that lock stitch. So that's where we have to say, okay, enough is enough. I can't adjust it any further here without diminishing my lock stitch. I've got to go into here and take out that bobbin case, and that way I can maintain the integrity of the top stitch and also the lock stitch as well. Otherwise, I'm going to start compromising one or the other. Okay, I think you get the idea. We had a great success. Had to give it a little bit of a hand boost because I didn't give it probably enough gas. Didn't give it enough foot controller pressure down. And so I had to turn that balance wheel a little bit to get it to go through these 2 layers. But we did it. And we got some great results. So let me add this to our pile over here. Our single layer and also our second layer of genuine cowhide with some great, great results. go to the light side now. Let's go to the light side, and I'm going to go ahead and back off that presser foot pressure quite a bit. Come out on the shot here. So I'm going to go ahead and release that pressure foot pressure so it's fully out. And now we're going to adjust it to accommodate silk or satin. At least we're going to try to do that. So we're fully disengaged right now, which means right now we have no presser foot pressure at all. Maybe just a smidge because of the presence of the spring inside of the faceplate, but for the most part right now we've got no presser foot pressure right now. So we've got to give some of that back. And also I'll remind you about on a lot of these Japanese machines, when you take the presser foot pressure completely off, you're going to be able to force that needle bar, you're going to be able to force that presser foot bar up physically. But on this one, it's got a slightly different design, the Atlas machine, so taking all the pressure off is not going to give you any more clearance or the potential for any more clearance underneath the presser foot pressure, the presser foot itself. So I'm going to slowly, incrementally increase this and get us to a point where I think it'll accommodate the satin, but it's not going to create that puckering that we sometimes get. So I'm going to go right about there, check to see how much presser foot pressure we have by raising and lowering that lever a little bit. I can feel how much pre-tension is on that presser foot pressure. I'm hoping that'll be enough for our satin. So I'm going to stop right there, but you can see we have very, very little presser foot pressure right now. I'll raise it up a little bit more, kind of show you. Whereas we were down really, really far, almost to the max to do that genuine cowhide, so we would have adequate feed. Right now we're at a very minimum, so we can accommodate that lighter material. Okay? So I'm going to grab our satin and our little piece of stiffener. Let me bring us back down to the needle so you can kind of see that. And now we're going to be going from extreme heavy to extreme light with this next sew off. We're going from 2 layers of genuine cowhide all the way down to a very delicate sew off on this satin material with a stiffener. Okay? Come on a little bit more, and I'll try to get this material lined up. Alright, I'm hoping I didn't go too light. Hoping I didn't go too light on this. Alright, so we've got 2 very thin layers of satin with a little bit of stiffener. We've adjusted the presser foot pressure after we were going through those super thick layers of genuine cowhide. Probably about 8 to 10 ounces of leather. And now we've adjusted that way back to try to accommodate this very delicate sew off. Let's see how I did it in guessing what we needed to get this done. All right? All right, here we go. Satin material, delicate, light. We pivoted now away from cowhide. Let's see if we nailed it. Here we go. That felt really good the way that was feeding. That felt really, really good. Hopefully we got it right. rocking the balance wheel to advance that thread a little bit. Rocking the balance wheel. Yeah, I think we did really well. Let's take a look at this closer up now. And that's where I do things differently than most of the other folks on YouTube or on Facebook or on the internet anywhere, is I don't just take us through a single sew-off and consider one is done. I take us through a wide field of sew-offs so you can see the capabilities of that sewing machine, whether it's an Atlas made in Japan like this, or whether it's a FOF 1222E like I prepared for Joelle and Sandra out in Bakersfield, California. Whatever it is, I want to give that owner and others that watch that video a new appreciation for the just the incredible diversity and the wide span capabilities of what that machine can accomplish with subtle adjustments, right? That's really what sewing is all about, is seeing the greatness and realizing the new capabilities of that sewing machine. All right, let's look at this satin now and see how we did. Coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in, coming in. Wow. Very little, if any, puckering. I mean, you're going to see a little bit of evidence of that just because you're dealing with such a delicate material, even with the stiffener, but we've got some absolutely drop-dead gorgeous stitching there. So I'm really pleased, very, very pleased with the outcome that we just got. Go across again and look at that stitching. See if I can come in even a little bit closer. Little, if any, puckering, little, if any, tipping of the stitch, which means on this satin we are really, really close to that sweet spot on tension. Let me actually grab it up now and see if we can hold it up and look at it vertically as well. I think that's sometimes fun to see the material in a different way. Let me set it down and see if I can adjust that camera focus just a little bit. That is some absolutely gorgeous top stitching. Look at that. It's so exciting when you nail it. You know, you're guessing a little bit on what do we need for presser foot pressure for this satin. We just got done going through some crazy genuine cowhide, 2 layers of it. And I think we are really, really close to the mark here. Really, really close to the mark. Very, very nice stitching. Very nice top stitching. Yeah, we've been battling a little bit trying to get that tension just right. And for this satin, I think we did it. Always room for improvement, but I think we're almost right about spot on. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitching. Very, very nice as well. Very nice. I'll show it to you horizontally too. We're looking at it vertically right now. Very, very nice stitching. You know, a little bit of the sheen off of that satin as well. Working with those LED lights where you have to kind of just get the right angle to be able to see that stitching. But to be able to pivot with a machine with only a modest adjustment, to be able to pivot with a machine and go from, go from dropping it to not dropping it. Hold on, I almost got it. To be able to go with a machine and to pivot from going with crazy heavy. Where am I? It's over there somewhere. I almost zoomed in on the featherweight that I'm working on as well. But to be able to go from a sew-off like this with 2 layers of genuine cowhide and then make a subtle little adjustment and pivot over to here and say, let's do satin now. That's the greatness factor of a machine that you don't see on YouTube very often. You just don't see it on YouTube. They want to do a quick little sew-off and consider it done, but you never see them make a pivot or a quantum leap from 100% cowhide, 2 layers of that, and then jump over to satin like this and say, look at, we still have that greatness factor on this satin. But that's what cow country is all about, is we want to be able to show that you can make subtle adjustments on a machine and go from 100% cowhide, 2 layers of it, all the way over to satin and still demonstrate a beautiful stitch outcome. A beautiful, beautiful stitch outcome. I'm just going to set it down. I'm tired of lifting it up, but I like the presentation of that stitch more when I lift it up. Beautiful, beautiful outcome, both with the lock stitch and also the top stitch as well. So I'm going to add this to the pile with our cowhide and our cotton and all the other stuff we got going on over there. And now I'm going to, before I forget to do it, I'm going to adjust our presser foot pressure back up again, because we're way, way down right now to accommodate that satin as we would if we were doing silk as well. Something very delicate. We'll go right about there, because I think we're going to be doing maybe some denim now. I got to grab some denim, and we'll be doing some denim next on this Japanese machine, this Atlas. Oh, I noticed I also did not cut the outdoor material either. Let me come out on this shot a little bit. There's our denim that I wanted to make sure we sewed some denim on Haley's great-great-grandmother Alice's machine. I also have to grab this outdoor material as well. This is a type of canvas. It's a type of canvas material. And I usually like to sew off on this as well, because it really, really does a beautiful job of highlighting the beauty of the stitching and also testing the strength of that machine. With an Atlas machine, we've got to constantly be testing that strength, don't we? Give this a cut real quick and see if we can get some of this out as well. Some of that outdoor material. And yes, I am using my Guggenheim shears. A number of you have been recipients of these when I do giveaways. And we actually have a pair that's got to be heading towards Thorpe, Wisconsin eventually for our dear friend Teresa and Tim, our dear friends Teresa and Tim, so that they can enjoy these incredible shears as well. This is so crooked. I'm going to try to straighten it out as best as I can. If I can't do it with Guggenheim's, then I probably can't do it at all. Alright, there's some of that outdoor material. It's used in gardening and other applications because it can stand up against the weather and the wind and everything else. And then I've got this denim also. We'll do some denim. Why don't we do the outdoor material first? This stuff is, again, like a canvas type material, incredibly strong stuff. So if I can fold this, we got 2 layers to start, and we got 4 layers. If I can pull off 6 or not. See if I can pull off 6 layers of this. Will I have enough presser foot clearance? That's the question. Looks like I will. That's 6 layers of this outdoor material. Probably going to adjust my presser foot pressure just a little bit higher because we've got quite a thick sew off on this one. All right, let me come in a little bit closer now. All right, so we've got 6 layers of this outdoor material. Let's give this a go now. All right, here we go. And again, I'm working with a Japanese Atlas machine, 1.2 amp motor, but I didn't have the proper foot controller, so I'm powering it right now with a Bakelite style foot controller that's only rated at 0.7 amps. But here's the good news. I'm not pushing this motor to a point where it's going to need more than about 0.7 amps. But you might hear it groan and moan and fuss a little bit. All right, so let's give this a go. Getting a very tired Schmetz Universal 9014 needle, but I'm going to see if I can continue to push it all the way to the finish line. Let's see if we can do it. All right. See if we can do this without a hand start. You'll see both of my hands there. And we'll see if we can make it through this very difficult sew off. It's an outdoor canvas material, UV resistant, the whole shebang. Tough stuff. Probably even as tough as leather. And now we're doing 6 layers of it. Okay? All right, here we go. Jiminy crickets, that was brutal. Very, very brutal. And even with my tension adjustment, I don't think we have, I think this is too much. This is too much for this setup that we have. It's too much that we have for this setup, so I'm going to back it off a little bit. I'm not even going to show it to you in detail other than to say that I don't like the results that we got. I don't like the results. We certainly got through it, but the stitch quality just isn't there. I'm going to throw this off to the side. I think we'll focus on the denim for right now. And also to consider the possibility that we might have to change the needle out. Definitely going to change it before I send it home to Haley. But yeah, I don't like it. I'll throw it in our pile, but I'm going to cut another piece and not go quite to 6 layers. All right, let me come out on this shot a little bit. I think we'll do 4 layers instead of 6. There's 2 layers. layers, and then 4 layers. All right, let's try 4 layers and see if that is a little bit happier of an outcome. I just didn't like the look of the stitching with 6 layers of this outdoor material. Let me zoom back in. We're going to try 4 layers instead and see if we get a better outcome. An outcome that I feel is representative of the greatness of this machine. And if we have to, we will change out the needle. I beat up this needle quite a bit off camera, and it may be giving me cries for help of let's get a fresh needle. But we'll try this first. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's better. I like 4 much better than 6. Yeah, still a little bit of tension factor going on, and I can see that. Probably going to sew this a second time as well. Make some tension adjustments. Might do that. Might do that. Actually, I'm going to make one other adjustment first. Pause this music real quick. Again, we're going through 4 layers of this. It's a commercial grade outdoor type material. It's used in gardening. It's able to resist UV, the whole shebang. It's just a wonderful, wonderful material. But it also is a tricky material to be sewing with a universal needle that's tiring out. It just doesn't have the dexterity to get through this material and create an effective stitch. So I made an adjustment on the bobbin case. I bumped it up a little bit to give us a little bit more pull down to try to clean up this this top stitch a little bit more. Actually, I think I fed that in wrong. Yeah, no, I'm correct. We're going to do a stitch line down this one and compare them to see how our top stitch is looking when we bumped up the bobbin case. And then we're going to also adjust the upper tension to try to clean up the lock stitch a little bit. I still don't like the stitch that we're getting. I think it's a product of the needle being tired, but we're going to try it again to see what result we get. All right, here we go. Yeah, that's a little bit, I like that better. I'm guessing we probably hurt our lock stitch. So now we're going to make an adjustment to try to accommodate our lock stitch a little bit more. We're starting to zero in on this material as far as the top stitching, but now we're needing to adjust to accommodate the lock stitching on the bottom of the material. Let's give this a go. I'm going to bump this up and see if we can get better clarity on our lock stitching. All right, here we go. Oops, get my foot on that little Bakelite. Yeah, that's starting to come into form. I still don't like the way the stitches are presenting on this outdoor material. This outdoor material is just not for every sewing machine. I know that seems like a controversial thing to say, but this machine having a little bit better technology or advanced technology with the hook system, it also can affect the sewing of certain materials. The machine loves leather. I'm not sure that it loves this outdoor material. Alright, so let's take a look at this. We'll see what we think. This is not going to be the preferred material for this sewing machine, and most people wouldn't be sewing it anyway. It's because it's a specialized type material using for outdoor applications. Okay, so here's our top stitching. I'm going to kind of show you all three of them as we made different adjustments going across. All in all, some good top stitching was starting to come into form. The thing we struggled on is the lock stitch result. The lock stitch result is just not, it's not coming into good form with this machine. We're getting kind of a waviness, which is a product of the tension struggling. The first two rows we did, this one and then the second one in the middle, definitely not representative of a lock stitch that was coming into good form. The final adjustment I made, and I didn't go as far as I probably needed to, is this row up here, and you can see that stitch starting to come into form again on that top row. But we still needed to make more adjustments on this particular Japanese Atlas machine to accommodate the stitch results that we want. So this outdoor material, I'm happy that the machine was able to get through it and deliver some pretty good stitching, but there's a lot more adjustments we'd have to make if we were going to be sewing it all the time. So I'm going to throw that over here into this pile. And yeah, again, between the 6 layers that we did here and the 4 layers, yeah, certain machines like certain materials, and this one is not loving the outdoor material, that's for sure. Not loving the outdoor material. All right, let's do some more sewing. We'll try some marine vinyl, I think, now. And then I do want to try to do a little bit of denim, but I'm thinking I might freshen up our needle first. We put on some Japanese music, and see if we want to maybe put in a fresh Schmetz universal needle. I'll give you something else to focus on. All right, a little bit of Japanese music. Okay, thank you for your patience. I usually don't change a needle out, but I was pretty confident that needle had developed some issues. Even a Schmetz needle can develop issues. So I'm just going to quickly buzz down that outdoor material one more time without making any additional adjustments, and just see if that stitch quality cleans up a little bit with a fresh needle. Oh yeah, much nicer, much nicer. I didn't make any other tension adjustments, but that's definitely it's a happier Atlas machine. All right, I can't even see where the camera's pointing right now. So I just buzzed down this again. Really a different outcome for this Japanese Atlas machine. This stitch line right here is the one. Let me actually grab the camera off of there. Yeah, I like the clarity of that stitch much better. Much better. So our lock stitching on the back. Oh my goodness. What a difference. That really helped quite a bit. Still a little bit of a tension factor, but that's a huge improvement. I'm glad we took just a few moments to change that needle out. The way I beat up the needles off camera before I come to a premiere like this, it really does lend the opportunity to have issues with those needles. There's I think probably a handful of times that I've changed a needle out, but once in a while it's just necessary. All right, let's do some denim. Do a bit of denim, and then we'll move on to our final sew-offs. All right, so I've got 2 layers, 4 layers. I think we'll go try 6 layers of this denim. 6 layers of denim kind of looks like that. We'll see if we can get it underneath that presser foot. Hopefully we're good to go. Oh yeah, we got it. Alright, let's see if we can get some good stitching down this denim, and then we'll move on to our final sew-offs. I'll do some parchment paper. I'll probably do a little bit, maybe do a little bit of Italian leather. Maybe buzz down some marine vinyl, and then we'll consider our premiere complete on this great Japanese Atlas machine. All right, here we go. What do I have? 6 layers, I think. 6 layers of denim. Oh yeah. Yeah, always start with the basics, right? Always start with the basics. The basics is check your threading, check your bobbin case orientation, and check your needle. Yeah, that needle just ran into a little bit of trouble. It's okay. Schmetz are still the best needles in the world. They just are. All right, let's check out this denim. 6 layers of denim. Oh, and we have the tension balanced as well. Look at that. This machine loves leather and it loves denim, doesn't it? It loves denim and it loves leather. Let me get it laying like this. It'll be easier for me to just lay it down and not bug around with it. Oh yeah. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Spacing, the formation, the presentation of the stitch is just exactly as I want to see it. And this again is not a light sew-off. It's 6 layers of heavy grade denim. 6 layers of denim, and just a beautiful, beautiful result for great-great-grandma Alice's Japanese-made Atlas machine. Top stitching is absolutely spot on. Let's turn over and see how we did on the lock stitching. There's our lock stitching. I'm going to try to zoom in on it nice and close. If I get it up here. And we got some beautiful lock stitching as well. A little bit of a compression of the stitch, which tells me that 6 layers of denim, the machine can handle it without a hand start. But based on the feed factor, we had a little bit of a reduction in the size of the stitch, or compression. That means that the material was so thick underneath the presser foot with the feed dogs that we didn't get the level of feed that we would have wanted. We got even feed, but it didn't feed it and give us the full outcome of the stitch length we had set, which should have given us a longer stitch. I hope that makes sense. When you're dealing with the feed factor, it's a product of the feed dogs and also the presser foot pressure. We had the presser foot pressure up almost to max, but it wasn't enough for this level of sewing with this thickness factor of 6 layers of heavy grade denim. We needed more pressure, or we needed a different way of feeding it evenly. Maybe a roller foot, a walking foot would have helped us out a little bit more. But the stitch presentation, the stitch formation, the integrity of the stitch, it just doesn't get much better than that. For this level of sew-off, a great, great outcome. Some beautiful, beautiful stitching for the lock stitch, and also for the top stitch as well. That's a hard sew-off, folks. That much denim. We're using a basic presser foot, and we've got the presser foot pressure almost all the way up to max. Could have gone a little bit further, but I didn't think we needed it. Yeah, we probably did. But some beautiful stitching nonetheless. Probably ended up, instead of getting 6 to 7 stitches per inch, we ended up getting around probably close to 8 stitches per inch, just because of the feed factor. But you know what? When you go through that much denim, you still get a great stitch outcome. It's just compressed a little bit. I'm not going to fuss about it. I'm not going to fuss. That's a lot of denim. So we'll add that to our pile. So far in this premiere, this is our sew-off sandwich so far. We did the 6 layers of denim. We did the outdoor material, 6 layers of that, 4 layers of that. We did the 2 layers, actually we did the 1 layer and the 2 layers of genuine cowhide right there, and then also the cotton material as well. Lot of sewing on this machine already, and we actually ended up changing out the needle just because I thought we were getting a little bit of a compromise in the caliber of stitching that a Schmetz needle normally delivers. So when you start to get compromise in the stitch quality, right away consider the needle, even if it's a Schmetz needle, consider that needle suspect and consider the idea of changing it out. So we're going to do a little bit of marine vinyl now, and then I think we'll move into 1 or 2 other stitch offs, I should say. We'll do some Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. I do have some upholstery material we could try. We've got some fake fleece material right here that's 100% polyester. We've got additional cotton material that I considered doing and going up to 8 layers with that. And then we also have Italian leather and some other canvas material as well. We've already done canvas once. I don't know that we need to do it again, but we might. But I definitely want to do this marine vinyl. That's a real popular product these days. They use it for obviously marine applications, boats and stuff, but they also use it on sewing different pet products like collars and stuff like that too. So I like to try to give that a go on this Japanese machine. See how we do. See how we do with it. See if it's something this Japanese Atlas likes, or whether it says, no, I don't like marine vinyl. Marine vinyl is very specialized. We'll see how we do. Two layers of marine vinyl. Leave our stitch length the same as it is. All right, let's see if we can get through this stuff. This is any type of vinyl is going to create a little bit of a challenge for a machine. Possibly skip stitching, distortion of stitches as well. We're using a very new universal needle, which should be able to deliver okay, but we'll have to wait and see. All right, here we go. Very nice. Let me tell you something. Great-great-grandma Alice's Atlas Japanese machine, it seems to like marine vinyl. And there's a lot of machines that would struggle with marine vinyl, but not this one. Not this one. Looks like we got a really good result. Set it like that, and we'll take a look at this stitching. Wow. Absolutely drop dead gorgeous top stitching. We've got some really good tension balance right now going across. It looks like we have some real even spacing. The stitching is spot on gorgeous. I'm just going to hold it a little bit so I can get even closer to it. Absolutely amazing. Struggling with that outdoor material, I didn't know whether or not this machine with its revised hook oscillating system would struggle with this, but it definitely did not. That top stitch is absolutely page 34 plus. Now the question is, how did we do on the lock stitch? We'll set it down right there. We'll take a little bit of a distance shot at it. Gorgeous stitching. Wow! Holy mackerel! I'm impressed. I'm going to turn it over now. Let's look at that lock stitching. Let's see if we nail that as well. And here we were, all in all, we got a very good result, but we were a little bit lacking on that upper tension. Remember we adjusted it down several times? If we were going to be sewing a ton of this marine vinyl, we would want to have that upper tension up a little bit higher than we did on this sew-off. It's a little bit on the weak side, but that's an easy thing to resolve because we know what to do. Look at it like this too. So again, is our lock stitch. It's our lock stitch. Yeah, all in all, I'm very pleased. Our top stitch is absolutely spectacular. Top stitch is absolutely spectacular. Our lock stitch was good. You can see that's our lock stitch right there, looking at it from the side. But we needed just a little bit more tension here, and we had turned it down several times. But if you get that where you get one that's really, really poppy, like this, and the other one is good, but it could be better, make that adjustment. Make that adjustment and bump this back up a little bit again. You've got to do that with materials because they interact with that needle and thread differently as you're going through them, right? But overall, when you look at that lock stitch like we are right now, we've got a good looking lock stitch, but it can always be better, right? Good looking lock stitch, great looking top stitch, and marine vinyl, look at that stuff. It's got that webbing on the back of it. This can mess you up quickly. And this Atlas flexed its mighty muscles and said, nope, not going to have any trouble with this. Don't like that outdoor material. Don't like that black outdoor material. But yeah, I can do marine vinyl all day long. All day long. Let's add that to our pile over here. And yeah, we could do a little bit of, see what our time is. I don't know what our time is right now. We've got this, we've got that. Yeah, we could try a little bit of Italian leather. That's some real thick stuff too, if you look at it from the side. It's also dense. We'll do one stitch line of Italian leather, and then I think I'm going to pivot us over to our Amazon packing parchment paper. Stitching paper, if you've never done it, you got to try it. It gives you a new appreciation for the greatness of a machine, whether it's this Atlas that apparently originally was pink, not anymore. It's lost its pinkness, or any machine for that matter. So let's rev up for this Italian leather. We'll do our parchment paper, and then we're going to wrap this premiere up. For Haley's third generation, I guess it would be, Japanese mighty Atlas machine. And I think it's proven its mightiness during this premiere today for sure. So we'll try this Italian leather, and then we're going to jump into some paper, and we're going to wrap this up. All right, here we go, some Italian leather. It's a little bit thicker than the cowhide. I think we can launch into this without a hand start, but we might need a little hand start on this. This is really, really thick stuff, all right? All right, here we go. I'm going to silence our Japanese music for just a moment. I want you to be able to hear this mighty Atlas go after this Italian leather. Let me check our camera angle. Yeah, that's a good camera angle. All right. And I would guess that this is probably about 4 ounces of Italian leather. Let's give this a go. I'm going to try it without a hand start. Then if I have to give it a boost, I'll give it a boost. Because we are holding that motor back just a little bit by using this Bakelite 0.7 amp foot controller. But again, we're not maxing that motor out. So I think it can get the job done with this featherweight style foot controller. Let's give it a try. All right, here we go. Whoa, slow down, buddy. Slow down. Oh, like I said, great-great-grandma Alice's and Haley, your mighty Atlas loves, I'll say it again, loves leather sewing. And I know that Haley and her partner, they love to go to Renaissance fairs, right? They go to Renaissance fairs, and part of their wardrobe, I am guessing, part of their wardrobe is going to be leather. Something on their outfit is going to have leather when they go to these super cool Renaissance fairs, right? Haley, you are going to have so much fun sewing leather on great-great-grandma Alice's machine. Oh my goodness gravy. Look at this. I got to show this to you. And Italian leather is just such a beautiful leather to sew with. Check out this stitching. Oh my goodness. Trying to get close, but I don't want to get blurry. Here, put it on a little bit more. Let me just put it down here. Just put it on the table and just see if I can get close enough. Then I get to that shadow thing, don't I? All right, let's do our best. Oh my goodness. Wow. Wow. This is Italian leather, folks. About 5 ounces of Italian leather. I'm not using a leather needle. I'm using a Schmetz Universal 9014 needle. And folks, I can't make that any better. That is a page 34 plus top stitch. Oh my gosh. The Mighty Atlas loves leather. The Mighty Atlas loves leather. Oh my goodness, does this machine love leather? Page 34 plus. Totality of the stitching. Wow. Wow. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch. Is it going to be just as spectacular? I think so. And again, we're not using a leather needle. Not using a leather needle. Let me try to get right over that. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow. And it goes back to show you again, when you get the right material in relation to the right tension balance, and you've got a happy Schmetz needle, you don't get any of the tipping of that stitch. It is spot on, straight across, even, balanced, happy, delighted, toe tapping stitching. You imagine the Renaissance costumes that Haley can make for she and her significant other. I don't know if they're fiance or not. Am I saying a naughty thing? Did I say the F word, the fiance thing? I don't know if they're fiance yet, but maybe that'll, if she's watching this with her significant other, maybe that'll give him an idea. Yeah. Yeah. But at any rate, whatever their level of relationship is, they will be able to make the coolest costumes for their next Renaissance fair, holding my hand above the LED light. On Italian leather. Oh my goodness, is that, I'll just say it, that is sexy stitching right there. That is sexy. Are you kidding me? Hey baby, look at you. Oh, wow. Wow! That's our lock stitching. Our top stitching is equally sexy. Yes, it is. I'm not gonna do anything else with this Italian leather. I'm just gonna put it in our pile over there with our sew-off sandwich, our sewing Olympics. Wow. Let's do some paper. Let's do some paper. I love sewing this Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. So much fun to sew. Let's give this a go next. Put on some Japanese music and we'll wrap this premiere up. And I want to thank Haley for the opportunity of taking this machine back to greatness. There were so many needs, wiring needs, belt needs. I mean, just the list goes on. This machine had obviously gotten a lot of use within this family, going all the way back to 1956. And it's a well-loved machine, but even well-loved machines, they need a little bit of help sometimes. And that was the case with this mighty Atlas machine that belongs to Haley now. Got this amazing machine from her great-great-grandma Alice, who passed away not too long ago. Well, I guess it's not too long ago. Look at my notes again. I think around 2011 or something like that. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, and passed away so young. Yeah. Well, 2001, I apologize. Not 2011. So it has been about 23 years ago. That great-great-grandma Alice passed away in 2001. Only about 7 years after that amazing photo where Haley's a newborn baby and her sister Mackenzie, her sister Mackenzie is not much older. She's still quite a young gal. Show that picture to you one more time. So this is that picture right here, that classic picture of great-great-grandma Alice, who had this machine to begin with. There's Haley on the bottom right as a brand new little baby and doing what little babies do. She's sleeping. And there's Haley's big sister, Mackenzie, there on the left. But this photo was taken around 1994, and only 7 years later. It just shows you how fragile life is, right? How fragile life is. 7 years, only 7 years after this picture was taken, great-great-grandma Alice went home to heaven. And these two little girls have all these memories of this incredible woman. And now they've got this living legacy machine that great-great-grandma Alice used all the time. And now Haley will be able to use it and create memories for this family that, will be able to celebrate the life of great-great-grandma Alice again and again and again through every single project that this machine produces now. How cool is that? That's the living legacy of taking a vintage machine back to greatness, is that the next generations can continue to celebrate the greatness of this machine and celebrate the great memory and the life, the living legacy of great-great-grandma Alice and all that she brought to this family through this great machine. And now it's great again because of workshop magic and the tender loving care that I try to give this amazing machine, the wiring, the rebuilding of things and getting it back to a point where it can do amazing things again. That's why we celebrate our vintage machines, isn't it? And that's why we celebrate these machines that have so many sentimental ties to an amazing lady like this that brought so much love through sewing to this family. Yeah. And now that little girl that's sleeping in the picture there is now going to be sitting down to this machine and creating memories for this family and for the generations to come. Wow. Wow! Cool! So, all right, let's do this final sew-off. It's going to be this Amazon packing parchment paper stuff. I love sewing through it. Paper is tough to get through. If you know how strong paper is, its density, the piercing threshold of getting through it, especially with a universal needle that's not sharp. It's rounded on the end so it doesn't damage materials. And now we got to punch through all this paper, but we've got that mighty motor on the back. Even though we're dealing with a little tiny featherweight foot controller, this machine still has a lot of power it can deliver. So let's do that. Let's do that. Let's deliver some power down at the needle with this paper. I'm going to get some more Japanese music on, and we'll do this final sew off. And again, thank you to Haley and her family for the opportunity of having this amazing machine with so much of a story to tell, with great grandma Alice and all that she created on this amazing machine, and all that we've created today through these sew-offs. All of these sew-offs on this premiere today, all of these sew-offs that we did on great grandma Alice's machine, and now Haley's machine. Cool. All right. So how many layers do I have right now? Let me come out on this a little bit. 2 layers, 4 layers. I'm starting with 4 layers. 4 layers. So that's now what? You guys know I'm not good at math. That's 4 plus 4 is 8. Is that 16 layers? I don't think that's 16 layers. I better fold it in a basic way so that I don't get totally confused. There's 4. There's 8. Now that would be 16 layers. That is 16 layers of Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. We started out again with, what is this? We started out with 4 layers. That's 2, 4. That's 8. And then 16. Should we try 16 layers? Let's do it. And we're almost out of time. Looks like the cameras are getting ready to stop. I better try this quick. I'm running out of time. Maximum pressure foot pressure, 16 layers of Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. Here we go. Let's try to do it. Here we go. Unbelievably easy. All right, let me grab the camera real quick because the camera says we're almost out of time. Oh yeah, we're down to like 1 minute. All right, here's our Amazon packing parchment paper. Check this out, folks. Unbelievable. Holy mackerel! 16 layers of Amazon Prime packing parchment paper. There's our lock stitch on the other side. And it creates those cool little tufts. See that where it displaces? Unbelievable. Gorgeous, gorgeous stitching. Well, thank you again to Haley and her family for giving me the rare opportunity to have such a family treasure in the workshop and to do all of this sewing on her today, to be able to showcase her greatness again. So God bless everybody. Looks like we're going to end in about 2 minutes, put on a little bit of music, and then we'll wrap up this premiere. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Matter of fact, I'll be presenting this featherweight, hopefully, on Tuesday, so make sure you join us. All right? Wow. The mighty Atlas. Even though Atlas got in trouble with Zeus and was condemned to hold up the heavens and the sky for eternity, this Atlas has the freedom to enjoy more family memories that can be created through this great machine. Wow. All right. Take care, everybody, and more Japanese music. Here we go.